In this lecture, we will go ahead and understand the global capital markets. Now, what is an international global capital market? Any market. What is a market? First of all, leave global market, leave international markets. What is a market? A market is any place where buyers and sellers, they meet and the transaction takes place. Anywhere where buyers and sellers are meeting and transaction is taking place, that is called a market. So is Amazon a market? Yes, it is a market. Is Flipkart a market? Yes, it is a market. When you go out and you buy from a shop, is that a market? Yes, it is a market. Anywhere where buyers and sellers are meeting, if you organize an exhibition where buyers and sellers are meeting, that is also a market. Now, if we have buyers across the globe meeting with sellers across the globe, then it becomes an international market. So what is an international market? A market in which residents of different countries trade assets, that is known as international market. Leave international capital. We'll go step by step. So wherever buyers of different countries, they trade with sellers of different countries, that is known as an international market. Now, what is an international capital market? Well, an international capital market is where the transactions which happen between buyers of different countries and sellers of different countries, these transactions, they are basically of capital. And what is a capital? Capital is an asset, right? So if I buy and sell a service like a call center service, then I am dealing in international market, but not international capital market. International capital market is where we have residents of different countries, but they're trading assets. Then it is known as the international capital market. So international currency takes place in the foreign exchange market, which is an important part of the international capital market. Of course, so now just just try and understand. If a resident of India wants to buy a land from a resident of US, this resident of India will have to make payment to the US person in terms of dollars. If he has to pay in terms of dollars, this automatically means that the foreign market only works with the foreign currency. So wherever you talk about international capital market, you cannot be talking about domestic currency. You can only talk about the international currency. Let's go to the next point. Banks are at the center of the international capital market, and many operate offshore, that is outside the countries where their head offices are based. Now, this is very, very important. Now, see, a lot of times between the buyer and the seller, we have an intermediate like a bank who will receive the payment of the buyer, convert it into the right currency, and make the payment to the seller. Often these banks may be offshore. It may not be necessary that this bank has to be in US. It can be outside the US country, and still this transaction can take place. So the banks can be offshore. The banks can be well away from the head offices. So that is fine, right? That is all fine. So banks are at the center of the international capital market. They are playing a very important role of taking deposits, giving out the money, and for that to take place, they may not have to work from their head office. They can go ahead and work from the offshore market also. All transactions between the residents of different countries fall into one of the three categories. Now, if I talk about the transactions that take place in the international market, these are the three kinds of transactions. the transaction of good or service for good or service, the transaction of good or service for asset, the transaction of asset for asset. So please see this. Either goods and services are transacted back for goods and services, or they are transacted back with assets. Either assets are transacted back with goods and services, or they are transacted back with assets. So these are the different kind of transactions that are taking place. You transact good and service, and against that you receive good and service. You transact good and service, and against that you receive an asset. So this can be reversed also. You transact asset and you receive good and service, and you transact asset and you receive another asset. So these are the different kinds of transactions which can take place in the international market.